Welcome to Morning Coffee and Mimosas. I'm Cristina.
And I'm Joe.
We are a father-daughter duo. We come here Sunday mornings, but you can come here anytime you please. We banter about life, about business, and we do it over coffee and mimosas.
Good morning.
Hello.
Did I redeem myself this morning with breakfast? Or Mom made breakfast?
Yes, listeners, if you didn't listen last week, I was a little bit salty because
of a lack of salt because you didn't have home fries.
Because I had to bring my own potatoes that I had to pick up at a diner on the way.
And they weren't even that good.
They were not that good. So it was a little bit of a tough start to our morning routine with breakfast. But the good news is fresh home fries were back this week and breakfast was delicious. And we've told you we were not going to talk about our breakfast anymore. So that's where we will leave it.
That's it. Okay, good. And how was your weekend?
You know, Dad, it has been really nice. First of all, it hasn't rained all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's drizzled a little bit today, but the weather has been very nice. And yesterday I got to actually use my pool and had a few friends over and actually really got to enjoy myself, which when we have people by our house, sometimes I'm just like running around crazy. And I feel like I never actually sit down and I never actually get in the pool and use it until all of a sudden it's like, 6 o'clock and the sun's gone and I'm like, oh crap, now there's no sun. So my perfect day kind of happened yesterday.
Good.
And I really enjoyed myself.
Because I don't want you in a bad mood for the podcast, so that's good. I'm happy.
No, we wouldn't want that. But how was your weekend, Daddy?
No. Fine. Been fine.
Oh.
Unlike you with the pool.
Is it just fine because the sun's been out and this is not ideal?
I went out to dinner last night. I ate, so I don't need to go by the pool.
He's like, it was just fine because it stopped raining and I had to be outside.
And Cristina has a pool. I don't have a pool.
You wouldn't want a pool.
And I don't want a pool.
That would be the antithesis of like a perfect day for you.
So I save money and I'm happy at the same time.
There you go.
Yeah. So we have an excellent topic for today, and it's even going to be a couple of episodes on this.
Well, I think what we're going to do here is we're actually going to start a little bit of a series. We're going to do a series on communication. And the first episode is kind of relevant as I think it's mid-year review season. So probably a lot of people are going through that if you're in a corporate job and thinking about things to do, not do, do more of.
Keep yourself employed for another 6 months.
Keep yourself employed. And one of my goals is to continue working on simplicity.
That's huge.
So I think this is a very good time for an episode for us to do a communication series. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is simplicity and the art of simplicity and why it is so hard for people, ourselves included.
That's why it takes us 15 minutes to get to the point. We should like start at home.
We might, yeah. I mean, this podcast, considering, for those of you that didn't listen to episode 0 where we teed up what it was, we gave ourselves a little bit of a pass because we told our listeners I may be drinking mimosas during the filming of these episodes or recording, whatever.
Yeah.
And we did say it's literally a semi-organized, sort of organized stream of consciousness. So
we're really organized now.
We are more organized now, but it is still a stream of consciousness.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes a stream of subconsciousness, unconsciousness. But
we'll get to the point now.
It is a stream. So the simplicity may or may not apply to our podcast episodes, but the points will certainly be there.
Isn't that brilliant how you can not do as you say by saying it's by design that we're not doing what we say?
Yeah, I mean, this podcast isn't designed strictly for simplicity. We're having fun with this.
That's right, exactly.
But yes, do as I say, not as I do.
That's right. I actually had a boss at Carvel when I was in high school, and he didn't clean up one night when it came in the morning, and I was being a wise guy, and I said, you leave this list every night for me, and you didn't do it. And he looked at me like with a stern face and just said, just remember, do as I say, not as I do.
You learned all your most valuable business lessons at Carvel.
Oh, yeah, of course. So let's get to this aspect of simplicity, because simplicity, it really overlaps everything. We're going to use it in the context of communication and so on, but it's really encompasses a lot of areas. So let's look at it from the communication standpoint. And why is it important?
Why?
Yeah, that's a question to you.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. And I'm just going to tee this up this way. Mm-hmm. How many times have you started talking, or maybe like somebody asks a question and you're on the spot and they ask you for an answer, and you start talking before you have fully formulated what you're going to say?
That's like all the time.
But it happens, right? Where somebody gives you a question, you're on the spot, and instead of pausing and thinking, you start talking because that's just what we're programmed to do. And in the process of speaking, let's say you've talked for 15 seconds and now finally you know what you wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, you've now gotten your point across. And it took 15 seconds to get there. And everybody on the receiving end was like, okay, where is Joe? Where's Cristina going with this? And then it finally kind of lands, but your message gets completely lost in there. And I think we've all been there, where we start talking, we haven't really put the thought in and formulated what we want to say. And then maybe we finally get to that point, or maybe we've really never clearly gotten to the point. And then you end up with well, let me restate that, or that was word soup. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But there's an interesting quote that I found as I was going to the World Wide Web to find brilliant quotes about simplicity. And it's by an artist and teacher, Hans Hofmann, who is from the 1800s and I believe lived into the 1960s timeframe, something like that. So before my time. But you remember him, Dad? Did you know Hans?
No, I didn't know.
Did you know Uncle Hans? You would have known him, no? He was around during your time.
Point.
Anyway.
Get to your point. How's that?
Anyway.
See that? I'm scolding her already.
Very good. I need it. So anyway, Hans Hofmann had a quote that I really liked, because he says, the ability to simplify means to eliminate unnecessary so that the necessary may speak. And that is so true.
Right.
The more that you say and the more complex that you make things, the harder it is for the other person to understand and know what's necessary.
Okay, but do you realize that although that quote is simple and the statement is simple, that's not easy to do.
It's so damn hard.
And guess what? Who decides what is necessary versus the not necessary? And that's why people make things complex, right? Mm-hmm. So we hear all these quotes about simplicity and everyone nods their heads and yes, I have to be more simple. And then yet we find ourselves, all of us, not simplifying. And I believe one of the reasons for that is that I haven't taken the time to figure out what is necessary and not necessary. So I'm just going to basically, like a dump truck, I'm going to press the button and it's going to dump everything I have on top of you. And hopefully you can figure out what's important. And that's where we fail.
That was such a good point, too, that you just made. Because what are you doing when you don't simplify and when we don't simplify? And I'm saying you, collective, right?
Yeah, right.
But when we don't simplify, it's kind of selfish because we're putting the work on you to figure out what is important and what we want you to get out of it.
Right. Exactly. So how does this happen? So it happens because, again, not putting the work in because it's difficult to simplify. But it's even more complex to say, okay, yes, it's difficult to simplify. Why don't we simplify? And that's because I believe we're not clear about what it is we want our target market. And it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about selling. It's everything. And I'll get to that in a minute. What is it that we want to convey to the target market that we're after, if that makes sense? So let me explain a little bit. If you are in sales, if I'm your prospect, you need to determine through questioning, and we've had other episodes on that, what is it that I am most interested in? And that's how you can then make that quote realistic by then saying, well, Joe's hot points are boom, boom, boom. And then you strip away everything else and don't dump the dump truck on me, but you spoon feed me the necessities because you now know what it is that I'm interested in, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking for a promotion and you are my boss, then I would hope that I would know somewhat about what it is that you value in me, strip away all the other stupidity that I might do during the day. And I don't mean stupidity, but all the other, I may do a million things in the day, but a million things aren't going to get me a promotion. It might be 2 or 3 very important things that I accomplished, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I convey those. So that means I've determined a target. That's how you simplify.
You're totally right. And the biggest fail is that lack of understanding who your target is.
Right.
The lack of understanding who you need to be communicating with. And that's where the big fail happens.
And what they want, what, or at least what I perceive.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
Yeah. From either what you believe they want or what you've heard. And I mean, that goes into probably a whole nother topic we can dig into, which is listening.
Yeah. And we will.
And we will.
We will because, yeah. And I'm just going to touch on that because I may say something and you nod your head, but you didn't interpret what I said the way that I said it, you know, and then now I'm going to simplify everything and then I'm off the mark because I simplified it so much that you didn't pick it up. But that's for another day. But what I'm saying right now, this topic of simplicity, the reason I think so many people are not direct and to the point, and why do we hear over and over again, just get to the point, or just what, you know, tell me what you're going to tell me, like stop with all the other stuff. It's because we're not clear about what the other person wants to hear, or we're so excited about what we want to say that I'm now being selfish and I'm just going to open that dump truck on you because I'm so excited about all the mounds of dirt that I just picked up from that other spot that I'm going to dump it on you.
Well, so just kind of an analogy there, because this is something we were talking about before. I was talking about, you know, I was doing something with my phone and I'm desperately in need of the new version. I have the Apple, the 10, and I'm impatiently waiting for October to come here so I can get the 12.
Or 13.
The 13?
Whatever.
How far behind am I?
I have a 12.
Oh my God. I'm so behind.
That was
the
last
13.
year. You're so last
I'm
year.
so last year. This is embarrassing. If anyone from Apple's listening, this is humiliating. But anyway, I need the new phone. But a couple of things that I was trying to do and I was talking to you about, you actually said, oh, well, your phone is able to do that. So I wasn't actually aware of some of the features and functions that my phone has. But one of the things that I've always loved about Apple is that it's simple and easy to use.
Right.
And something that you actually said to me was that Apple does that by design. They have a ton of features and a ton of functionality that is there. But what they market is they simplify what they market. So you may not realize unless you take the time to really dig in and learn about the device because they know who their target is and they know what are the most important features that we want you to remember.
And they make those simple to use.
That are simple to use.
Right.
So the point being, and this is not an Apple commercial, right? You know, anybody that's an Android lover, you know, they simplify too. But the whole point is that you may have a million things you're excited about that you can do, but not all million of those things matter to the person you're talking to. So like if you are interested, like you talked about your boss, right? And you need a promotion. He's going to care about the things that impact.
It was an example.
Well, whatever. I'm saying like for the listeners, if you think about whoever your target is, and it doesn't have to be a business thing. It could be somebody in your family. You want your child to, you know, listen to you and do something that you want them to do. Well, what are the things that they care about? You know, you want your significant other to, anything that you're communicating for.
Know your target.
Know what they care about and how to communicate with them so that they take away the thing that's important.
Right. But in order to do that, it takes discipline.
Yes.
And not being self-centered. Because when I say self-centered, we're not being self-centered. When you're looking at yourself, when you're inward focused and I'm excited, I'm going to give you everything that I'm excited about. Not caring about the fact that you really don't care.
Exactly.
Right? So you have to be other focused, which is like a life lesson in and of itself. Know that takes discipline to keep your focus there, and preparation. If you're selling to me, you need to prepare from all the other meetings we've had, all the questions you've asked, and vice versa. If I'm looking to you for a promotion, I need to prepare. Why would you give me one? What do I bring to the table to earn that?
And then I think the third thing is being thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
So you really, aside from preparing and being disciplined, you need to be thoughtful in your approach. And really, now that you have that preparation, you need to think about what are the things that are important to that other person. What are the things that you need them to understand? What are the
Right.
necessary things that you need them to take away from what you're sharing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's storytelling. Think about storytelling. This is an area where I try and think about all the time because I know that, like, in our family, I'm predisposed to give too many details.
Well, I think we all are.
I won't name any names, but there are a lot of details that fly around in stories when we're sitting around a table as a family all talking. Right. And it takes a lot of discipline to really think about what details are relevant to the story and to the beginning, middle, and end, and the punchline.
Right.
And there's a million other things that probably happened that are irrelevant to the person that's receiving that.
Right. What am I trying to convey?
Right.
Yeah, right.
What a time saver too. If you can really distill down your communications, both written and verbal, to what is important and what is important to the other person. So you're not thinking about what's important to you, but you're thinking about what's important to them. That's
the discipline, right? That's the preparation, and that's the thoughtfulness, as you said, for the three things. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And the example that I gave before, was when you're put on the spot. So
what could you have done? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're right. What could I have done?
What do you do? What's the technique in that case? Since we can help people, I can give you the technique.
Well, and I may not have the answer here, but I think what I could have done is not answer right away.
Right.
What I can say is, that's an interesting question. I'd like to take a couple minutes and think about that so I can come back to you with something that's relevant. Or, I might need to take a minute to digest what you just shared. Let me come back to me. The other thing that I think you can do, and Dad, you may have a different approach to that, but I think that there's also another side to that. So as the person that's asking questions, try and set people up that you're communicating with to be able to have done preparation and be thoughtful about things. So if there's a certain topic that you're going to want to come to, and this is something I'm working on, is, hey, Joe, I'd like to ask your opinion on this topic. So as we're kind of going through this, put a little thought in that. I'll come to you for some feedback.
So you've prepared me. Help me
prepared
succeed.
You, even if it's just a minute or 30 seconds before I'm coming to you. So I help you to be able to simplify your thoughts and be more succinct.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. So the other party, it works both ways. No matter which end of that conversation you're on, help the other person.
Yeah. So simplifying your request,
right,
then will get you a more succinct and simple answer.
And I like your statement of you didn't have to answer. Like, we feel compelled to answer on the spot, and you don't have to do that.
Well, I think that's part of discipline, right?
Yeah.
And I think it also goes back to being confident in ourselves. Sometimes we feel like if we don't have an answer right away, do we look stupid or we look like we're not knowledgeable?
Right.
The time and energy you can save other people and yourself by being deliberate in what you respond with. And I mean, I'm guilty of it, right? Somebody comes to me they have a question and I start answering and I'm like, if I had just taken a pause, taken a minute, gathered my thoughts, I could have actually given a meaningful reply that they could have done more with. You
could also, when you take that step back, ask a clarifying question.
That's a good point.
And you throw in that clarifying question, say, that's a very good question. Let me just ask you a question. Are you talking about, A or B or whatever, ask a clarifying question. That also gives you time to.
Well, you're 100% right. It gives you time to think, but it also allows you to get their question maybe
clarity,
simplified, and then better understand what they're looking for.
So this is going to be a little bit of a series, not 32 episodes, but it's going to be a little bit of a series because this whole idea of simplicity vis-a-vis communication, or communication vis-a-vis simplicity and so on, tracks with verbal, nonverbal, written, a whole bunch of things. So look for other future episodes coming up
definitely
on this topic. And I wanted to ask you about your weekend, because you said that as we were talking, I'm thinking about, why was the weekend so special? That you said you had extra time. Why? You never have time when there's people over your house.
Well, it's funny now that we're talking about this, and this sounds very planned right now, that question. Did you have this did you write that down?
No, it came to me in the middle of what we were talking about.
Well, it's funny. So we had literally 4 people over. So it was simplifying who, where usually I'm kind of like, come by, like we have 2 people coming, and then, I see this person here or whatever. And I'm like, oh, but then we should have this person. And then it becomes a small get together, becomes 15 people or more. So that was, I guess, if we're thinking about simplification, that was certainly true. But also like the food and everything, we simplified what we bought. We got, more limited things. Why did you do all that?
Why?
We did it because we wanted to enjoy the day, and it felt like, we don't need to go crazy. We were thinking about who do we have coming over? What do they eat? Like, what will they enjoy?
Right. And I was getting you to the point.
Yeah, you were leading. That was a leading question.
But that's what I wanted to get across, because that's what I thought happened, is that you thought of who was coming, and you thought of an end result.
You're right.
And worked it that way. And you simplified, and this is where simplicity comes in any number of ways.
Yeah, and with that, we were able to have good food, the right amount of food, and it wasn't, because sometimes at the end of the day, I'll go to the supermarket hungry, and I end up with so much stuff that at the end of the day, we're like, wait, we had all this stuff we didn't even make.
And you were frazzled for the whole time.
We were frazzled the whole day. There was stuff we didn't even make, and we never get to sit down. I will also say, in the spirit of delegation, I also got Brad a smoker. So
clarify that. That's for food. What'd you do? Bring over an old man that smokes?
Why did you feel the need to clarify that? Of course it's for food.
I thought you meant you brought over an old man that smokes. You got him a smoker to sit on the side.
Of course. You're like a guy with like a pipe out the corner of his mouth. We brought over a smoker to cook for us. No. Yes, of course I mean for food. We got this like Kamado Joe smoker thing, kind of similar to that Big Green Egg that people probably know of by brand. But I'll call it delegation, because now Brad is super excited about smoking meats and stuff. So he made like a really awesome
that's good.
Pork ribs and stuff. Yeah. So that also takes work off my plate, because now, Brad's doing a lot of the cooking.
Very smart.
It is very smart, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He said that a lot of the gifts I get him are self-serving, and I disagreed at first until he started breaking it down, and I was like, okay, I see where you're getting at there.
Yeah. Good.
All right,
well,
Dad.
Thank you.
Time to shut it down, you think?
Yes.
All right. Well, listeners, as we say, if you liked what you heard, leave us a comment, send us a note about other topics you'd like to hear more about, engage with us on Instagram, leave a review, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
You got it. Wherever you are, whatever your story, thanks for spending time with us this morning. Now, go and make a difference in your world.
Dad, I don't mean to disappoint you. I know we didn't invite you over to build the smoker.
I just want to have the food from the smoker.
You typically build my grills. This one we didn't need your help for. I'm sorry.
No, I just want the food.
Okay.
I don't have to build it.
Deal. Bye.
Bye.